And if you are a member of COAC, please just remember, to the degree that you are comfortable, please keep your cameras on. It allows for us to stay in community in this virtual setting. And just a reminder to please keep your video off unless you're speaking for all of our other staff and other members around this virtual table. Next slide, please. To go over the agenda this evening, we'll cover our welcome here in just a couple moments. We'll talk real briefly about the July 15th meeting summary notes. We'll receive a project update by project staff. You'll also receive committee updates from both Dr. Holt as well as Erica. Then we're going to continue to roll up our sleeves relative to the diversity plan. We have another great presentation prepared and discussion prepared by our CMGC. We'll then have breakout groups come back with a report out, receive public comments, and then discuss next steps. Next slide, please. For the general public attendees, you will be in listening mode as a reminder. Again, today's meeting will be live streamed and recorded via YouTube and will be made public on ODOT's project website, i5rosquarter.org. After the breakout group session, the general public is invited to rejoin the meeting for the report back summary, work session, and public comment. As a reminder for those who may have technical challenges, you may dial 503-479-8674. Next slide. I think you might have skipped one slide there. Was there one before that? Okay. Just to remind, if you could go back just one slide, please. Stay right there. So due to technical limitations of live streaming, members of the public are not able to listen to our breakout sessions. And so we will be back at 5:20 where COAC members will reconvene and do the report out. And so we encourage members of the public to participate and hear that summary. Recommendations from each breakout group will be presented and discussed publicly at that time. Recordings of the individual sessions will be posted online once available after the meeting. Next slide. Just a reminder, and for those of us who are members of COAC, we are very familiar with our ground rules of the road. For us to let everyone participate by listening first to understand and respecting diverse views and opinions, that we really want to listen with an open mind, that we value learning from different input. We have just a magnitude of expertise around this table, and we really want to make sure that we're providing the space for all of us to bring to bear that expertise. For us to stay open to new ways of doing things. Again, this whole project is really around innovation and creativity. And so we really want to create an atmosphere by which we can really leverage that. For us to treat others constructively and respectfully. Next slide, please. For us to respect the role of the facilitator to guide the group process. Again, my name is John O'Bell. I'm your facilitator. My role is to help guide the discussion, to be a neutral observer, and to help us make our way through our process. For us to attack the problem, not the person. Again, let us not personalize the challenges that lie ahead. Disagreement, frustrations, and differences of opinions are acknowledged, explored, and addressed. So those are our ground rules for those of you who are new to this table. Next slide, please. This is just a note. Were there any questions relative to the August 19th meeting notes? I'll just take a moment to see if there were any questions or comments. You should have received those via email. Okay, hearing or seeing none. Next slide. Right now, we will have the project update, and I believe we're going to have Monica Blanchard as well as we have our project director, Brendan Finn, on standby as well. So Monica, Brendan, I'll turn it over to you.
Good afternoon, COAC members. Yeah, Megan is out on vacation, so it's my pleasure to be with you here in her place this afternoon. I'm Monica Blanchard. I'm the Rose Quarter Deputy Project Director. And I just want to hit on a few key project updates since we last met. So the Hybrid 3 option for the Rose Quarter project continues to move forward, following previous recommendations from the Historic Albina Advisory Board and the Executive Steering Committee, and with consensus support from you, the COAC. The commitment and involvement with the community in making this project a reality has been critical. It'll continue to be critical as we work to move forward. And I just want to say thank you for your commitment and your dedication and your continued engagement on the COAC. So as I'm sure you're all aware, on September 9th, the Oregon Transportation Commission met and considered the recommendation for the Hybrid 3 design, which they agreed to advance with a few conditions, noting the change in potential cost of the project, which is up between $500 and $750 million. The conditions outlined by the Commission specifically emphasized a finance and funding plan by December 1st of 2021. So that is to include an estimate of the amount of dedicated funding needed, as well as a viable plan to secure that dedicated funding from multiple sources, including federal and state, as well as City of Portland, Metro, Multnomah County, TriMet, and any other organizations in the Portland Metro region. So the commissioners made it clear with their concerns around the additional price tag and the need to better understand how all current stakeholders, including the local governments, would be involved in funding the project. So in addition to significant funding from the state and federal governments, the commissioners were hoping to identify additional opportunities for investment in the project, like I said, from the local government agencies as well. So the Commission's commitment to creating long-term benefit for the Black Historic Albina community through this project, which includes economic opportunities and jobs, maximizing the developable land, cover programming that centers the Black community, and improved access and safety for all travelers remains unchanged. Commissioners also reiterated the need to keep the project on schedule. So obviously, this is a lot, and there's a lot of work left for us to do, but this was an important step in our road ahead for the Hybrid 3 option. The other item I wanted to touch on is an update on Governor Kate Brown's IGA. So a draft governor's IGA is with partners for review. The IGA memorializes the discussions and agreements that were made around Hybrid 3 during the governor-led conversation with both local government partners and community leaders. It also does recognize that there will need to be an additional project-level IGAs to ensure transparency, clearly describe roles and responsibilities during the project planning phases and implementation. And with that, like Janelle mentioned, UMO Director Brendan Finn is also here, and we're happy to take any questions.
Great. So if you have questions, if you could please utilize the raised hand feature, and I will call on you in that order. Any questions or comments? Okay. I'm seeing no. Okay, Brendan Finn, you want to jump in?
I guess while people are thinking that over, and if they don't, I just want to double down on what Monica said in appreciation. I think I came to this before this body once and said, you know, it's about showing up, and we're going to keep showing up. And I just want to thank this group for showing up, and not showing up to rubber stamp, showing up to ask the hard questions. And in that process of how we coalesced around this consensus of Hybrid 3, you were key in that role. You know, we did it together. And again, I just want to express my appreciation for you showing up authentically, unfiltered, and asking the tough questions. And we got to be there to answer. So just wanted to extend that as well. I think Mr. McFerrin put something in the chat. Janelle, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Joel, I'm going to recognize you to pose your question for the record here, if you'd like. Joel?
Yeah, I can do that. Thanks, Janelle. That was a lot to me, and I probably have the least amount of experience with a project like this. But I was thinking, how realistic is it that the project will meet those requirements that were just presented? And maybe you get a feel from other COAC members who have more experience with these kinds of projects. But that sounded like a lot to me.
Brennan, I'm going to ask first for you to react to that.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces that need to be brought together, Joe, and we're working on that. The first one, obviously, is the financial plan. We've been hard at work with that, with our division at ODOT. Yeah, it takes a lot of pieces to bring it together, and no one's saying that this is that we're done. I think we're moving forward. We have a pathway, but there's no doubt there's a ton of work to be done. So I don't think anyone is shying away from that. So, you know, we got to get started. I didn't know if there's anything in particular, Joe, around what we're trying to do that you were referring to, and I'll leave it up to the group, the advisory committee, or Monica, if they had any other thoughts.
No, I would just say, Brandon, that I would agree with you that getting going sooner rather than later is critical here.
Kenichi?
Absolutely.
First of all, let me apologize. I was in a meeting that ran late, and I totally missed what sounded like a great presentation. Is there a document link that I can review to catch up, or do you have a document that you can just put in the chat?
Monica, there wasn't, it was an oral report. And maybe I think what we could probably do is find time to update you offline, Kenichi, unless Monica, if there is something in writing relative to an update.
I think we could get some bullet points out to the group. I don't know if we could do that right now, but definitely after the meeting.
Okay.
Maybe in the meeting notes. That's okay.
Oh, I can connect up later. I thought he was saying something about a plan and numbers. So I was like, oh, maybe there's a document, but I can follow up later.
Great. James Posey?
Yeah, I just want to piggyback a little bit off of what Joe has said. It is a lot. And Brendan, as much as I like you and I like everything you talk about, I still haven't seen anything to pop out on the ground that makes me know that we're moving on those fundamental parts of how we do this. For example, I put in the chat the New York Times article about the scarcity of workers, skilled workers to be able to do work. And, you know, I've been clamoring, I've been talking about building a runway for us to be able to take off at some point in time. But Megan and none of you guys at ODOT have approached me. We've got some stuff going on with the Coalition of Black Men around some things we think will be helpful. But really, I haven't seen anything, you know, are you guys aligning with Joe's organization to get people in the pipeline? You know, I mean, I just haven't seen anything. Sweet talk, but to date, I haven't seen anything. So help me out. Give me some reason to say, shut up, James Posey. Here's what's going down.
Well, we certainly don't want to shut you up, Mr. Posey. I think if I'll try to address that. And basically, we had to know what project we had. You know, we had to get over this hump and get to this place that we're at right now. And now, you know, the marathon really starts, and you know, we get off the tracks. Off the tracks in the track and field, not off of the tracks on a railroad analogy. So we're running, And so we're getting started right now, James. I've talked to Joe a little bit. We want to start that engagement now, and that comes through this committee. You are advising us. You are our leaders. You're going to be telling us how to make that engagement and who to connect with, because that's not something I think we've always said. We don't want the agency leading these things because we've tried it before and we've done it wrong. So we need to do it right. We need your help, James.
Well, Brendan, the truth of the matter is I don't know where Stephen Green, he's on his committee, but he was touting the fact that ODOT has other projects that they're doing. It's just not the I-5 project that we have the issue with ODOT. And so I was looking for a report on other projects. I know you guys just bid it, the 217 interchange project, big project, not too far from us. It went for low bid, and so typically low bid doesn't serve us well as African Americans. But at the end of the day, did anybody restructure that project so we could begin to use some of those other ODOT projects as a gateway to this project? I'm a little frustrated with that, Brendan, honestly speaking, because you guys got more projects out there than this I-5 project. Where are we at on that?
No, fair enough on that front. Obviously, we're here to talk about Rose Quarter. That's one that's in our portfolio. But let's table that. Mr. Posey brought that up, so that's an item we need to look into. Our office isn't delivering the 217 project, so I need to go back and check and find out what's going on that, James. As Mr. McFerrin pointed out, we got a hands full with this one in particular, but we'll go back and look at that, James.
Great. I'm going to ask Amber and then Lee, and then we're going to need to move on because, again, we have a packed agenda.
Thanks, Janelle. So, James, I completely agree with you, and I absolutely respect your point of view. I just want to remind the COAC where we are kind of like in the process and why we're here now. So the goal has been to have the COAC review all elements of the diversity plan. This is the last section related to workforce. And then in the next few meetings, we will present, basically it's like a COAC matrix, which basically is a summary of some of your recommendations and then how those have been incorporated into the diversity plan. And just a friendly reminder, James, that the reason why we did it this way is because we want you to, agree with the approach and the recommendations that the JV has put forward. And then after y'all like what you see and we refine it, then we'll be moving into the next part, which is, implementation parts. Sorry, I'll shut up. Thanks, Janelle.
Great. Lee?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Real quick, just kind of to piggyback on Mr. Posey's comments, seems to me that I recall us having a conversation about doing some early work to build this pipeline, because this isn't the first time he's brought that up. And I remember comments that seemed to say something along the lines, we're going to be reaching out to these pre-apprenticeship programs, we're going to be reaching out to these various groups, JATCs, et cetera, and start priming them and getting this ready, because while we were waiting for the which package or hybrid or cover rather, there we go, to be approved, we knew a cover was going. So I'm a little concerned now as well, because this is impacting several other projects down the road. So I just want to throw that observation out there, that if we're waiting around for, I'm concerned about the synchronization of the project. There's things that could be happening while those approvals can be obtained.
Right. And I'm going to ask Jeff to weigh in, because I know the CMGC has been thinking a lot about the workforce side. So Jeff, maybe you can comment and talk about that.
Thanks, John L. Yeah, so all good questions. And yeah, we realize we can't wait for the project to get, solidified with the cover before we start moving. So you see a lot of the grassroots campaigns that we've been doing. We've been reaching out to a lot of the pre-apprenticeship. We've actually hired several interns. We've actually placed people with work that Hamilton has, some work replacing people with the work that the Sun has in this region at the wastewater treatment plant. And we're also, Raymore is placing people now, getting ready for this pipeline. So we realize we're moving regardless, because we understand what it's going to take to do this, right? Because this is what we do. So we're not waiting around for the project to move forward, because we know if we wait, then we won't be successful. So we're also pushing early work packages to get those packages moving as soon as we can as well. We're hoping to get those going by 2023. And if all things go and we can continue to move forward with ODOT working lockstep, we should be able to start moving this agenda collectively forward. And so this is the last step of getting our plan together for you guys that we're going to review today that talks about all that. But that's all great questions.
We have Kenichi.
Thanks. I just have a couple questions on the kind of this preparedness that's happening. I would love to get a sense of the outreach that's being done to the firms to get them prepared. PBDG would love to partner with you on that. I am not, I don't have visibility to how some of that outreach is happening. I'm sure you're reaching out to the firms directly, but how can PBDG be a part of ensuring that some of our subcontractors are working on those preparedness projects with Hamilton and Sunt? I think if it's a part of the project plan, we would most certainly be interested and certainly keen to ensure that we have as many subcontractors working on there as well. And Shelley, I see you with the note. I'll follow up. Thank you.
Jeff?
Yeah, so we're going to be reaching out to everybody. When you start talking about subcontractor, our primary focus right now is to start preparing the readiness of the workforce, because that's where we see the biggest gap. We're going to be reaching out to all the PBDGs, the NAMACs, and everybody here soon as we can get a little further at 30% to start talking about what the real opportunities are in terms of subcontracting. But the biggest gap that we see right now is having a prepared workforce and getting that workforce prepared. Otherwise, we're going to have a hard time getting the equity and inclusion numbers that we're projecting out. So that's why we're focusing more attention on that now than subcontracting.
Okay, and sorry, folks, we need to move on. We're going to move. Thank you, Brendan and Monica, for that update. We're going to now have Dr. Holt and Erica provide committee updates. Dr. Holt.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, COAC members. Thanks, John L. I'm Dr. Stephen Holt, and I've been the facilitator for the Executive Steering Committee. On August 31st, the Executive Steering Committee had its final official meeting. And the baton, as it were, for this relay race to continue has been passed to the Historic Albina Advisory Board. There are some remaining items within the Executive Steering Committee's charter, and those items now are being passed on into the hands of the Historic Albina Advisory Board, who will carry forth the work. There was a recommendation supporting the hybrid 3 option for the lid cover, which then was sent to the OTC, and you know how that went. You've heard the report on that. Essentially, the work will continue. The Historic Albina Advisory Board will continue to support it, and Ms. Erica Warren leads that process. So I'm extremely brief in my report out. Ms. Erica Warren.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thanks for your participation in all of the joint committee member meetings. Before I give my brief report, I want to congratulate Kenichi as well on her Daily Journal of Commerce Women of Vision Award for 2021. Very proud of the work that you're doing in your technical skill, leadership, mentorship, and community involvement and engagement. So congratulations. Hope to see you there on the 28th. Again, just want to acknowledge all of you who had an opportunity to join us at the joint committee meetings on August 3rd, as well as August 17th. As you all know, The Historic Albina Advisory Board also had a special session on August 23rd, where the group acknowledged and voted to proceed in agreement with the convenings to present Hybrid 3 to the OTC. As you have heard on more than one occasion tonight, the OTC's recommended further exploration of that. The HAB also did write a formal written recommendation with several considerations and conditions along with their recommendation of Hybrid 3. Those things, again, being what we've been stating consistently around maximizing the developable land on and off the highway cover for lasting Black community benefit. There was also consideration for the creation of the governance commission that is represented by and accountable to the Black community, having a broad representation, including those from the HAB, from this group, the COAC, from other community organizations around the city that are already engaged in economic empowerment and development within the Albina corridor. Also wanting to hold the project accountable to delivering tangible results, as in some of your conversation earlier in the questions that you were asking of leadership. Some of that also includes that financing plan that they're diving deep into, and to make sure that the CMGC process, as well as the joint venture with Hamilton Sun and Raymore Construction, be elevated and celebrated, continue that maximizing economic opportunities for people of color, DBE firms, be a priority, as well as minimizing impacts to Harriet Tubman Middle School. So we are working going forward with the design team on a number of other elements in regards to the project, as well as those items from the Executive Steering Committee charter that Dr. Holt mentioned. So we look forward to the opportunity to continue to partner with you and provide some great economic and long-lasting benefit to the Albina community.
Great. Thank you, Erica and Dr. Holt. Any quick questions or comments by COAC? Okay, seeing or hearing none, why don't we go ahead and go to our next slide, please? And at this stage, I'm going to hand it over to Jeff.
All right. Again, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Moore, and I'm the president of Raymore Construction. I'm one of the executive team members for the Hamilton Sun in association with Raymore Joint Venture. I'm actually going to be doing Bill Bruce's role tonight and actually talking about kind of where we are. I'm kind of excited because we have the culmination of a lot of work in our diversity plan, and this is the last section of it that we're going to be presenting today before we move forward. So let's just kind of do an overview in order to inform what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the final portion. So in March, April, and June, we actually went through part A, which included all the historical barriers. In April, we introduced our green sheet tool, which is the science behind how we are going to achieve everything that we achieve, right? So we take our plan and then we use the green sheets tool, which we introduced to you guys, and you guys have seen multiple times. And that's kind of our blueprint on what we go at. You have plans and specs, those are our plans and specs. And then we talked about technical assistance that we're going to be utilizing to ensure that the BIPOC firms who have historically been marginalized have a real opportunity to get the support that they need in order for them to ensure their success on this project. And then July, we shift to subpart B, which is workforce, and we talked a lot about apprenticeship. And then August, we started shifting to the bulk of the job, which is the core journeyman level work and how we're going to ensure equity and inclusion in that workforce. And we went through that in August, and we're going to be finishing that today here, today, and how we're going to make sure that the equity and inclusion is interwoven in everything we do. And then finally, that takes us to October, November, which we'll be incorporating much of the community matrix that you guys have put out to us and start answering those questions and working very closely with the entire project team to incorporate your comments in a way in the plan in order to get it submitted in December for approval. Okay, next slide, please. So essentially, here's how this whole thing works, right? We had subpart A, then we added subpart B, then we added C. All of that has actually been now are the written portions that actually go into these plans and specs and this green sheet analysis that will continue to be informed all the way throughout this entire project. And then we take and we incorporate all the community input from people like the COAC, we've had ESC weigh in, right? Some on this piece of it. And that should kick out an approved diversity plan that is both very informed, is comprehensive, but most importantly, executable. And that's in order for us to achieve successes that are necessary. Next slide, please. So today we're going to be talking about is the utilization of the diverse workforce doing construction part 2. So that's what we're talking about now. This is again where the rubber meets the road. This is how we're going to get equity and inclusion in terms of our workforce for this project. Okay, Matt.
Thanks, Jeff. Before we get started, we always like to review the guiding principles. Everybody on our team is committed to these listed here related to workforce, and we're ready to work with the workforce providers to increase access, for the underrepresented local populations and to increase the skill level of the local workforce. And we'll have a high level of focus on workforce retention. And lastly, we look forward to continuing to work with you folks, the COAC, to develop and refine our workforce plan really now and throughout the job. Next slide, please.
How y'all doing? So when I came up with this acronym, I was working closely with Bill Bruce, who I believe is proven in construction to be different. I am absolutely disappointed in what I have to experience as a young Black man in construction. I've watched individuals like Jeff Moreland do this work, and now I watch as Bill Bruce, who's been doing this work more than most of y'all, is somehow excluded from this conversation. And this is pure nonsense to me. Gun violence is up over 1,000% in my community. And I have to be truthful. Gun violence is up. The community, you guys have an opportunity in ODOT to do well by the same community that you are part of harming. And as we use keywords like BIPOC and equity and all that, my community continues to suffer. We've continued to push this project back. And I just look and I'm so overwhelmed with politics. If you guys continue to say y'all not playing them, you guys are continue to plan them, and my community has continued to hurt. I am in the trenches in this community. I answer calls when young men and women are hurt, and I show up. So I don't see y'all there. So I think if all people, as y'all continue to speak for my community, as y'all continue to use these fancy acronyms for people who continue to say they speak for my community and don't do the work, I am appalled. I am not gonna recite this acronym as if I see you guys doing something different. I am grateful for what the opportunity I'm doing with workforce. The work is being done, and that's a fact. But as much as ODOT continue to say different things, from my perspective, people who are proven in the work, like Jeff Moreland and Bill Bruce, are continue to trying to be controlled. I refuse to be a part of my community being harmed again in this work, period, point blank. At some point, we all got to do better, and the politics have to be less important than the young men and young women that are dying in my community. So we can go to the next slide, Jeff. I'll get into that. So workforce advocate, recap from subpart B. Again, this is a role that I'm grateful to be able to play, and I think it's a unique opportunity. This is the responsibility of that advocate. This is a means to produce better results towards the recruitment and retention of Black, Indigenous, people of color, BIPOC individuals, management of all 4 of the avenues for employment, which again is to get that community in construction and retain them in construction. Workforce advocate. So is this my slide, Jeff? Can't remember. Assuming it is. So working with the Hamilton Sun Joint Venture, we are to analyze project staffing needs individualized by company, employment open house early and pre-construction, vetting our potential workforce candidates, and assessment of and funding. So these are the 4 avenues that we really can achieve that in, which is direct hire, which is going after experienced journeymen and journeywomen in construction space and getting them involved. Pre-apprenticeships, places like POIC, Constructing Holt, Women in Trades, amazing organizations that are doing the work in the trenches. You working with those organizations, which I am doing, and very grateful for some of those organizations, and getting people who have never seen construction in construction, getting a fundamental understanding of it so they can ultimately get into the apprenticeship programs, which are, again, are amazing opportunities for this community to be able to provide living wages for their family and get us out of the violence that's repeated in our community. And then, of course, mid-level management programs, which don't exclude any of those individuals, but will focus on people, getting them into internships and making sure that they can be successful at the highest levels in construction.
Next, I'm going to talk about HSJV compliance and the role of our diversity team that'll be led by our diversity coordinator. So some of the roles, as you can see, of our diversity team will be to take corrective action as needed, implement the HSJV OJT/workforce program, coordinate HSJV activities involving OJT/workforce, apprenticeship plans, and implementation, and report on HSJV and subs monthly progress for workforce. Throughout the project, we'll be compiling our DBE and workforce related progress reports. This involves using an ODOT system to track these statistics, including the disaggregated statistics. We as an HSJV will also be using our own system to track the same statistics. And really, the goal with using these 2 systems will be so that we can reconcile our data as we go. I think everyone can see that we're really passionate and we fully intend to exceed the DBE and workforce goals for our project. We're working on our diversity plan, and we believe that this plan will be executable and we'll be able to achieve our goals when we implement it. And we believe that tracking and reporting is a critical component to our success as we go. We plan to be continuously monitoring and sharing our progress. And we believe that this process will be interactive with COAC. Next slide, please.
So cultural competency training and orientation, foster an environment of safety and fairness, criticality of safe workplace with successful training and retention. Who gets it? Everybody gets it. Project values, history of albina, equity, equality. A culturally competent workforce is more successful at recruiting and retaining a diverse workforce and maintaining a harassment-free work environment. Use of Rose Quarter cultural competency training to train the trainers. So we want to look at a harassment-free work environment, working with the Safe from Hate Task Force, development and rollout of curriculum specific to the Portland area, program adoption prior to workforce hiring and subcontractor selection, a process to investigate incidents, develop and implement an internal-external crisis communication using Rise Up.
So this is just a summary of what we've been presenting over the past last 2 meetings to you all. So here's the conclusions from our 20% design analysis. And I do want to note that this does not include the hybrid 3 option. This is from our 20% analysis. So As you can see, we determined a total of 106 new hires are going to be needed for our project. And this is based on initially our analysis figured for 71 positions, and then we applied a 50% replacement rate to get to the 106 total new hires, or the gap as Bill explained it previously. So once we got that total, we were able to further analyze into the different trades. So now we have a total of laborers, operators, carpenters, drivers, ironworkers, electricians, and finishers. And from this, it brings us to where we are today in our analysis. Now that we know the gap or what we need on the demand side, we can start looking at the supply side, which is what Terrence is going to tell you guys all about what he's been doing. Next slide.
So again, looking at the supply side assessment and progress, just looking at what it's going to take and where we're at in hiring one-to-one, minority to non-minority. Open shop journey profiles, they're not there yet. When you look at the open shop apprenticeships and all that, open shop places, they don't have a one-to-one, and we don't have the capacity to do it yet. When you look at the open shop apprenticeship profiles, we're doing well there. Looking at the union journey profiles, again, we're not able to get there yet, but again, we're working on it. We're doing the work. Union apprenticeship profiles, we are. Pre-apprenticeship groups, we are. We're very, very aware of the need to be able to do one-on-one. And again, we are doing the work right now with a lot of organizations to be able to meet that goal.
Next slide. So before I go on this slide, I just want you guys have to understand from our perspective, we're very passionate about what we're doing. This is life to us. And so you guys just have to bear with us sometimes that passion comes out a little bit on what we're doing. So the role of outreach and affecting diversity prior to the project, the current Grease Street projections in terms of workforce is somewhere between 37 and 31%, depending upon how we look at it, whether we hold all firms accountable to that one-to-one, or we break it down and do a little less accountability for those firms that we don't think may not be able to do that. So it's still high at 31 to 37%. Now, in order for us to be successful, we have to make sure that we publish our procurement methodology to all subcontractors going to be involved in this project, all mini prime subcontractors, well in advance of the project. That's why this process that we're going through is so critical to us being successful, because for us to hit those numbers, everybody participating on this project has to buy in to what we're attempting to do here. You know, you talked early on about being innovative and creative. This is innovation and creativity that we're bringing to the table, and it's going to require everybody's buy-in for us to be successful. Our procurement methodology is heavy on workforce. The slides that Terrence just went through, we can see now both in open shop and journeyman shops that the one-to-one ratio from non-minority and minority journeyman, it doesn't exist. We're going to have to build it. So we've been working closely already with all the trades in terms of the union trades, and also Northwest College of Construction to really start addressing these issues and working with the firms that are currently out there who we work with to get them to understand this importance. And you have to understand it's not just from non-minority firms. We have an issue with minority firms getting minorities working for them as well. So that's just the reality of it. So we have our work cut out for it. And that's why this procurement methodology that we're putting out is very heavy on workforce, right? And then finally, further define the efforts to address the craft disparity, which we just talked about, working closely with the Northwest College of Construction, the unions, and the different subcontractor communities out there now to get their workforce more diverse to be able to participate on this project in a way. So with that being said, I think that's where we are. Next slide. I think we're going to break out things. I know, Kenichi, you had a question. I don't know if you want us to take questions now, John.
Yeah, why don't we, that was a lot to unpack. So why don't we maybe take the slides down and create an opportunity for folks to answer any questions. But prior to us doing that, I want to make sure that ODOT is in a position of offering additional commentary. I think a lot of the comments were directed at ODOT. So Monica, I'm going to provide an opportunity for you to respond and react.
Yeah, I just want to say, I know there's been a lot of discussion around the subcontracting and diversity plan, and especially over the last couple of weeks as the HSJV prepares to submit their plan here, I believe tomorrow. And I want to say ODOT's committed. We know you guys are the experts. You have a proven track record in delivering on everything that you're presenting today. So we're committed to taking a look at the plan and making sure that plan gets approved so we can move on to the implementation phase that I think we're all eagerly awaiting.
Thank you. Kenichi and then James Posey.
So I have a couple questions, and the slides would actually be a little helpful. The acronym RARE, I'm not quite sure. I was kind of struggling to see how that fit into the presentation. Is that a program? Is that a campaign? What was that?
RARE is an acronym that we were using for the project. Terrence didn't go through the slide much because he was a little impassioned about some things. So if you could take the time, Terrence, why don't you walk through the slide? So everybody understands what the slide represents. It's the acronym that we're going to be using for this project.
I'm gonna do it because you asked me to, but let's go through it. So Kenichi, I feel like RARE is a philosophy that I think if we embrace, that construction can be different historically for the Black community, especially than it's been. And so my hope was to use this acronym to really challenge the way we see, which again, so let's go over it, which is to recognize historical boundaries created by racist policies and discriminatory practices. Again, accept construction's role in this process, which we know it's played a huge role in really harming our community. Redefine what is normal behavior to ensure an inclusive workplace and environment. That is a direct attack on the type of white supremacy that exists within construction and the boundaries set for the BIPOC community, but specifically for Black folks. And effort, being intentional about hiring, training, and protecting people in the BIPOC community. This is the most important to me. We produce a lot of broom sweepers. Raymore is taking in people that's journeymen with no skill sets. We're over that. And so my challenge to all of us here is to not let numbers, numbers are not a goal. Producing people of color who can be excellent tradesmen and women is the goal. So RARE for me is a philosophy to challenge everybody at the table to get past the norms and be different in a way that we approach construction. So I hope that helped.
That does help. Thank you. And there was another, so just clarifying on the slides, so if we could pull that back up, there are a couple things on, I think 2 slides over, as you were walking through your job site, right? No, one more. Oh gosh, the slide where you're talking about kind of all the strategies on work, job site safety and anti-harassment, wherever that is. Right, okay, perfect. So the one before then, it makes mention of a Rose Quarter culturally responsive or cultural competency. Right there, perfect. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, the Rose Quarter culturally competency training, and then maybe the slide afterward, just to see how it all connects, because it's good information, but I didn't quite see how both of them fit.
So this, you got to understand, on this project, part of our project orientation, we're going to do a cultural competency training as part of this, right? John L. Bell, through his organization, did a cultural competency training for the entire group when we first started this project, right? To make sure that everybody understands what we're going to be up against on this and how you really shift a culture. So we're going to adopt some of that, modify it, but we're going to use that same type of training to actually train people. So it'll be part of the project orientation in terms of how you build a culturally competent workforce, right? Where everybody feels included and welcome and safe. So that's what we're talking about here. So we're going to weave it into the absolute fabric, complete fabric of the whole project. Does that make sense, Kenichi?
That does make sense. I guess a question that comes up then is how does that differ from the training on the next slide?
Because Rise Up is, it actually is for construction. It has a lot of toolbox topics and all that kind of stuff, right? So in terms of the orientation, we want that to be specific for our region. We're going to do a lot of historical understanding of how this particular market and just what it means to have equity versus equality, right? And all the things that are associated with how you have a culturally competent, how we express ourselves. Some of us are very passionate in our expression and how that can't, rock people out because you express that level of passion. So it's a little different than what you would see in Rise Up, which is going to be more about harassment-free workforce. It's actual how to interact in a competent way is more focused on that.
Okay, so you're going to have two programs in the project then?
Well, no, it's not two programs, Kenichi. One is every project has a project orientation.
Okay.
Okay. And part of that project orientation, that some projects is an hour, some projects is 4 hours. I've been through a 8-hour project orientation because it shows you the layout of the project, what you're trying to build. It sets the culture of the project. You go over all your safety issues, and then you're going to go over the culture that you're trying to create, which we don't do often here. But this is kind of the whole safe from hate and all the things. How do you create a culture in an environment, right, that is inclusive and is not offensive by its very nature? These are the things that Terrence is talking about as he sees as interwoven into the very fabric of construction.
And I know that James Posey, you had questions?
Well, I'm not even sure that I have a question. The question I want to know is this COAC for real? Are you all really looking at what we're saying and really trying to use what we're trying to say in this COAC and really actually implement what we're trying to say? Because sometimes I feel like you guys are just using us. We're sitting here to having these conversations because, from the very beginning, 2 years ago, I talked about changing the culture of ODOT so that people that look like me can really operate in an environment where we can have some success. And when I listened to Terrence and I word on the street about the frustration of this joint venture and the sort of things that they have to navigate through, I'm concerned. I'm concerned because unless the owner is making it conducive for the joint venture to be successful, we're just spitting in the wind here. And the frustration for me as somebody who's set on this and not getting paid one thin dime, and then watch ODOT kind of pigeonhole this project as if we're not a part of the whole ODOT family, is frustrating for me. Let me just be clear about it. What Jeff and what Raymore and them are doing and how they're doing it is monumental. Maybe that's not the word. Nowhere in the country do we have a contractor that has the wherewithal to do what Raymore and Bill Bruce and Terrence and all of them are doing. I dare say, if you can show me one place in the country where we have this sort of intensity about trying to make this project work, I'll eat my hat. So how that plays out for me is if they're going to do all this work on the I-5, why wouldn't some elements of what they're trying to do with their whole diversity plan apply to every project that is which is 400 miles of the Portland vicinity? Because we're not just talking about here in Northeast Portland, we're talking about the whole system of ODOT being conducive for people of color to work on. And if those elements in their diversity plan are applicable to bring about results on this project, they're applicable to bring about results on all of ODOT's projects. And for what I'm looking for is ODOT to expand its approach to include other projects that are going forward, because I don't worry about Jeff and his crew and the people they're doing, because they've already proven they have the ability and the wherewithal to achieve goals within the framework of where they've been. I'm worried about the rest of ODOT and its lack of commitment to what they're trying to do as a whole. So I guess my question is, I'm sorry Brendan left, because we got to get this on this. We got to get this on the record. ODOT needs to support the JV in its entirety. No more craziness, no more stuff that they've been doing to frustrate them so they can't get this job done. And that, I guess I'm gonna leave it with that.
Yep. So I'll, again, that was directed at ODOT. Monica, I'm gonna ask for you to just react and comment.
Yeah, I definitely hear you, James, and I know there's been a lot of frustration. I think we got to take a step back and do exactly what you said. They're the experts. We've got to look at the plan, and we're, like I said, we're committed to changing maybe what we've been doing recently, and we're committed to approving the plan that they submit here tomorrow and taking a look at it and moving forward. And we got a lot to learn, and I think we've got a lot that we can pass on, to your point, to other projects in the region. And I know Brendan and others will continue to push that throughout ODOT, but we got a lot of work to do.
So show some decency and respect. Get Bill Bruce back in this game, because if he goes, y'all gonna have problems, big problems.
So I know Kenichi, my apologies, Kenichi, I thought you had completed your questions. Want to recognize Kenichi, and then we'll go to Katrina.
James asked some of my questions in a way that I feel like it's already covered. So I had some, my last question was around outreach. I think there's certainly a number of people in this room who are eager to help with that and, be a resource to you. I'm curious about Bill Bruce. Is he leaving the project? I've heard his name like 5 times. What did I miss? Is he not?
You haven't missed anything,
Okay.
Kenichi.
Okay. All right.
Katrina?
So on slide 25, you guys were talking about numbers, and I think mine's more of a, just to put it on to your radar. So when you're looking at it seems fairly easy to get the profiles for the union journey workers, but it's going to be much more difficult to get the open shop journey worker profiles. So just to take some extra time when you guys are planning that, because it's not something that open shop typically has readily available as easily as the unions will. So just my comment.
Thank you.
Amber, and then we're going to go to the small breakout groups.
Yeah, James, so, our team writes the notes. I will make sure your request is in the notes, and I will follow up with ODOT to make sure we get a response for the very next meeting.
Great. Thank you for that spirited discussion, as always. Amber, you want to inform folks in terms of the process for the small breakouts? It's now 5 o'clock.
There you go, Corinne. Corinne, you got this. Go ahead.
Okay, good evening, or good afternoon, everyone. So we're going to go into the breakout group process. We ask that everyone designate a spokesperson to report out at the end of breakout. COAC members and facilitators will automatically be brought into their assigned breakout groups. At 5:20, Janelle, I don't know if we're gonna extend it because we went over.
Yeah,
So
why don't we come back at 5:30?
Okay, we're gonna come back at 5:30. COAC members, facilitators, and presenters will be brought back into the main session where they will then report out what they found, their discussion in the breakout group. Group 1 will be Bill Bruce, but however, I think Matt is going to be filling in for Bill on this one today. Am I correct?
That's correct. Yeah,
That's
yes.
correct. Okay, and Group 2 will be Mr. Jeff Moreland. So tonight's breakout questions are as follows that we want you to consider and think about. What recommendations can you offer as to how the JV can affect influence the industry primes and general contractors related to other ongoing projects to hire the gap today? How can the COAC members assist in making your recommendations a reality? Question number 2, what recommendations can you offer to bridge the gap within journey level disparities by craft? I think we are.
Great.
So we will convene at 5:30. Live stream observers may provide written comments at info@i5rosequarter.org with the subject line COAC public comment. Verbal comments can be submitted via voicemail at 503-470-3127. There will be an opportunity to provide a brief oral comment near the end of the meeting, and all written comments received will be added into the meeting record. So while the COAC members are inside of the breakout groups, we are asking that community members that are observing from YouTube that you take a moment to think about some of your questions, and we encourage you all to participate in the public comment period of the meeting. And I think we are ready to go into breakout.
Okay, we'll see you all back here at 5:30.
All right, everybody there?
Welcome back, everyone. We'll wait a few moments until everyone is here. And if we could just pull down the slide, please. Welcome back, everyone. So now we're going to have a moment for report out. We'll start with group number one. Jeff, I think you're group number one, so we'll have your group report out. You're muted, Jeff.
Okay, Lee was our scribe, so I'll let Lee take the lead and report that out.
All right, thanks, Jeff. And I'll just say, for all the intensity of the group, I'm going to blame Terrence and Mr. Posey. Blame them. But we had a great discussion and conversation. So in answer to question one, and I didn't write down the questions, so if you want to put them up so you can track along, and how we can influence the industry and etc. One of the first things one of the members shouted out was lead protests. And that was addressing the B part of the question. How can the COAC members help to bring these things into reality? And I just had to write that down. That was hilarious. Moving along though, other things we came up with was to definitely intensify and develop more collaboration and work with the JTCs and the unions to make sure that we're communicating, that needs are communicated early on in the project, even before the design is work, giving them an idea of what's going to be required, because we kind of already know those things in the development of the scope. And so getting that to them early, and then requiring unions to do some reporting and holding them accountable in their recruiting efforts. Wait a minute, what did I write? Yeah, in their recruiting efforts, and so that contractors can have an idea, contractors and owners can have an idea of, hey, are these goals going to be met? Are they realistic? What are we doing to course correct? Part two to that question of question one, in addition to lead protest, the groups said that we should encourage the firms that are doing the right thing. Firms like Raymore and the JV, do support them, talk them up, support programs that are providing support to workers in the field as well as to subcontractors. And did I miss anything, group, on question one? If not, I will proceed to question two. Question two, and that question was, okay, I can't remember what the question was, but the answers we came up with were to stay focused and ensure intentionality by the unions and JATCs, that it translates into accountability. We thought that early start to communicating with these groups and constant communication, make sure that we're seeing some intentional recruitment at all levels, and support to pre-apprenticeship programs, lobby changes to educational programs such as the trade programs in the schools, and invest in training programs for those potential workers that are beyond high school, such as our pre-apprenticeship programs. So we make sure we're training them. One area that we can shut down the gap is by ensuring that job site and cultural competency training programs are supported and implemented by all contractors in this region, at the unions and the JATCs, because everybody has a part to play in that, and that will help folks to feel more secure in their jobs. Somebody also recommended that there should be some mentorship programs, some one-to-one mentorship programs to help workers to build up other workers and bring them along. And finally, going beyond just case management, but developing some life coach supports for workers, journey level workers. I think I got it all. Team, did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think you said carpenters did a great job of reporting.
Oh yeah, I did. I didn't write that down. I know you want me to call that out. Carpenters do an excellent job at You're such a shameless plug. At their reporting and accountability programs for recruitment, and they provide excellent reports to owners. I know personally, they did a great job on our projects. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Right.
And Lee, can I add something, Lee, that you brought up?
You certainly may.
Yeah, Lee, I think it was Lee pointed out that one of the ways to get more folks in the pipeline was to figure out how to bring construction back to high school education. So I thought that was something. I think the genesis of that thought is how do we get more young people exposed to this profession?
Mhm.
That's it.
Other comments or questions for group number one? Okay, seeing none, we'll have group number two.
So I took notes for group number two, and some of our recommendations are very similar to what group number one said. So for the apprentices, bring folks in now so that they can, for example, get equipment time, give incentives to contractors now. Don't give exceptions. Write community letters in support of contractors who are doing the right thing and that are supporting workforce diversity. Create a criminal justice program to basically create a criminal justice program in the prison system. Also, similar recommendation, which was do job shadowing, like operators, marry them through an internship where you mentor them with mentees to marry up with the skills. And essentially a couple of these things boil down to access to opportunity and access to exposure and building exposure from high schools to the opportunities via collaborating with the private sector. Prioritize best value over low bid to put people over profit. And that allows you to reconstruct the diversity of the workforce. There was a comment that contractors can deny someone who doesn't have a driver's license unless they are in a position requiring a CDL. And the JV indicated that they don't do that, and neither does Mr. Birch. And I think the last comment was Will. That's it.
Amber, you please bring up that Posey said he's giving off his backhoe services.
Yes, he is.
Any questions, comments for group number two?
I will say, in addition to what Amber reported, that at the end, when I was able to get in, that we continue to have meetings. We continue to talk about what we plan to do and how to do it. You invited all of these experts into a room, and we have yet to see any progress. ODOT has been at the core of our not getting our kids into apprenticeship on highway projects has been the problem for years. And so without being transparent, without actually moving the dial, without us seeing progress, we're just spinning our wheels. And I think everybody in the room said something like this in the breakout group I was in. And there are kids that want to go into construction. There are kids that want to make more money than their parents. There are kids that don't want to go to college. There are kids that want to work with their hands. There's CTE programs. There's curriculum out there. A pathway to success, and yet we keep having these conversations. We are not moving the dial in a way that we could. Yes, we have people getting in, and Yes, we have retention, but it's nowhere near what it needs to be. So I just put that at the end of that conversation because this is, we're missing a lot of people, putting them to work and having agreements and partnerships and joint ventures with contractors and developers who could actually put people to work.
Great, James Posey.
Yeah, I just want to also mention, you know, you, John L., and I both had some engagement with Black Parent Initiative, who has resources to help people get driver's license and be in a road to, make no mistake about it, having a driver's license, whether you require it or not, helps facilitate you getting to work and being more accessible to the job, just straight up. So organizations like Black Parent Initiative have money, have elements of their program designed to give supportive services to contractors if someone were to ask them. So the other part about that is ODOT has supportive services dollars too, that they can restructure to help things like childcare and other things they could do, equipment and stuff that gives people trying to enter the workforce an opportunity to at least have the basics to get involved. So, you know, let's don't make no excuses. These barriers can be overcome in terms of entry. And we ought to, we ought to understand this. And the final thing I want to say is I have yet to see a database, or I've yet to see a spreadsheet on where the gaps are. So you don't know, if you don't know what the gaps are, how do you address the gaps, and what resources do you apply to that? Somebody should help, from a COAC standpoint, help us understand where we need to go with the gaps. That's it.
Great, thank you for that. At this point, I just want to do a check. Do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
Not at this time. I don't see anyone.
Okay, well, why don't we go ahead and give the public comments instructions in case we have folks who are wanting to find an opportunity to do so.
Okay, so if you're streaming in and you would like to call in to make a verbal comment, you may do so at this time. You can dial number 971-247-1195, entering meeting ID 884-8824-7639, passcode 095146. You will be placed in a virtual waiting room until it's time to speak, and we will admit you. If you would like to leave a voice message and we can get back to your comments, you can do so by calling 503-470-3127. Speakers will have 1 minute for comments. State your name and speak slowly. Speakers can also state, "I wish to remain anonymous." If you would like to email at a later time, you may email us at info@i5rosequarter.org or submit via project website, i5rosequarter.org. In the subject line, put COAC public comments. So I guess we want to wait a few minutes or seconds to see if someone pops up.
Yes, and while we are waiting to see if we have a public commentary, why don't we begin our wrap-up process? Amber, did you want to talk about next steps?
Sorry, I was on mute. Just really quick. So we will be having our next meeting October, I think it's either the 14th or the 21st. And we will be discussing the COAC matrix, which is kind of like a summary. So the next few meetings will be kind of like a summary of some of your recommendations and then how those have been resolved. So those will be the next few meetings coming up.
Great. And any public comments?
Still none.
Okay. Monica, did you want to offer any final comments?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for everyone's passion tonight. It's why we have JV. It's why we have COAC. The conversations are hard, and ODOT needs to continue to do better, continue to live up to what we say we're going to do. And I know personally I'm here to do that. And I know the rest of ODOT and our owners rep team are here as well. So I just appreciate everybody's passion that you bring to the meeting tonight.
Great. And didn't see any public comment. So we're going to go ahead and give you back some time in your evening. Thank you all for another robust conversation. And we'll see you. Oh, wait, James Posey. James?
I just wanted to, Michael Birch made some statements about accountability and having people talk about action, how we really get from just having all these meetings and so forth. And I'm in total agreement with that. People have made recommendations. If they're not good recommendations, we need to know that. You plan to throw them away or do whatever, but we need to know, because we're sitting here going through these meetings for the last 2 years. If things like I just hit Shelley up for a prison justice program coordinator. If they can't do it or not willing to do it, say so, move on, let's move on. But we're not going to be able to sit here and not have a response to all the things that we're recommending and want to get this ball moving down the road. So that's what I want to put in the record. This is the time to stop that.
Mr. Posey, I will say this in defense, especially of some stuff Amber is doing that everybody don't know about. We have been in touch with ODLC, and we are working to build that type of relationship to get with them guys and women and them men before they come home. So in defense of what ODOT has empowered her to do, that is being done, Mr. Posey, and I have a passion for that. So I'm definitely listening. Amber has already stepped up to begin that work. So you can be assured of that part.
Good deal.
Yeah, just real quick, again, and I think I said this in the breakout room, again, the problem isn't that you're not getting the recommendations. We're not hearing the result of those recommendations. So what I recommend is that the project team come back, identify those recommendations and come back with the actions on them. That's what we're looking for. To Mr. Posey's point, he's making this recommendation, but until we say something in this meeting and Terrence then jumps out and Terrence, brother, I feel you, man, right on. Until he, gets all fired up and heated about a situation, and then now we hear about stuff, but we shouldn't be doing like that. We should be managing this thing so that when a recommendation is made, the next meeting we see what tabled or action, to be determined as something. We need something. That's all we're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just listen, just real quickly. I just want to know how we will know whether or not the owners team is working with the JV and they're working in concert and there's no animosity or there's limited animosity, whether or not we're operating as a team. Because I don't get the feeling we're operating as a team from some of the discussions that we have. How will I know as a co-op member that things are operating smoothly, and who can tell me that? How will it be demonstrated in this process?
Well, I'll interject. I think that's going to be a longer conversation. I think ultimately the results will have to speak for themselves. Monica, I don't know if you want to comment relative from ODOT, but I do want to circle back. And one of the comments I continue to hear is what occurs with all of the feedback that COAC is offering. And I think what you heard Amber indicate is that the next meeting, there'll be a report out in terms of material that ODOT has heard from COAC and what the results of that was. Amber, could you correct me if I'm wrong on that?
No, you're exactly right. So following every single meeting, we've kept notes, we've developed a matrix of all of your recommendations. Then, ongoing basis, we've been meeting with the JV with regard to those recommendations. And at the next few meetings, we'll basically lay out everything that you said relative to the JV.
Right. And some of that, again, I've been in some of these discussions. The purpose of having COAC react and weigh in on the diversity plan is that as the CMGC is developing the diversity plan, they're integrating the feedback they're hearing from COAC. And so I think part of what we'll need to do is have the CMGC report back out how they've also utilized your feedback and how that's been integrated. And so I think that's the note across the board is COAC wants to see how your feedback has resulted in some either specific language or some outcome. And I think that's reasonable. Monica, I want to provide an opportunity for you to respond, and then I'm going to close out the meeting.
So Janelle, so Monica, just really quick, I'm sorry, I just want to make a point of clarification. So just to be very clear that what we're going to be presenting, or what the JV is going to be presenting, is how they folded, how they're responding to your recommendations in the written plan. And then after y'all approve or, like what you see, then later they'll work towards implementation. So I just want you to understand, we'll get you the written document and that will be what you can look at. Sorry, Monica, go ahead.
Great. Thanks for that clarification, Amber.
Yeah, I think the approach we're taking is we recognize that we've hit some stumbling blocks over the last several weeks and maybe several months even. So we're taking a step back as a team and having some discussions and really, like I said, leaning into the expertise of the JV, making sure that we're fully committed to approving the plan that they have set forth and making sure we're fostering that culture of collaboration and moving forward. So taking a little bit of a step back and having those separate discussions over the next couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you all. Have a great evening. We'll see you next month.